never gotten around to finishing my train table. From the beginning, it was meant to look like a display inside a toy store, and I designed it to be simple so that I could keep it clean, keep it dusted, but I never got around to finishing the upper two levels. And instead of having more of these ceramic buildings, I decided to turn the upper two levels into something with a Disney theme. This is part 2 of a series of videos where I will be transforming my second and third levels of this train table into an area faintly resembling, and hopefully making you think of, the Magic Kingdom castle in Walt Disney World, Florida. It's difficult to see in the video, but there are actually white pencil lines drawn on top of the black painted plywood, and they've faded over the years because I've wiped down this table many times. But the arc of this cork roadbed oval was created by using a piece of mat board that had 2 holes punched in it. One hole had a push pin attached to the surface of the plywood, and the other hole held a white pencil. And in that way I made a very large compass so that my oval had very even, very smoothly arcing curves. I'm just using a yellow wood glue to hold the cork roadbed in place, and until it dries it will hold its shape with a whole lot of staples. It may seem like I'm using too many staples, but they will mostly be covered when I lay my Gargraves track on top of the cork roadbed later on. I bought a bunch of 38-inch sections of Gargraves track, and it's difficult to bend, and this is a smaller oval with a tighter radius than the tracks below, but I've done it before and it turns out pretty well, and you end up with a very smoothly running train that pretty much never derails. In part 1 of this series, you saw how I used a sheet of brown paper as a template to lay out the rough placement for my castle and some ramps and maybe some trees, and that paper served its purpose, but now it's time to move on to 1/8 inch plywood. And I'm going to glue 2 sheets of plywood together, but leave some space beneath the upper sheet of plywood for wiring, for lampposts and whatnot. This is how I made the compass. This is just the piece of mat board with the pin going through one end and a hole punched in the other, and I used the pencil to just draw a nice, very smooth, sweeping arc on my upper sheet of 1/8 inch plywood. Now that I have my final shape drawn in pencil, I can roughly cut out the shape with a jigsaw, and I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch space between the cut edge and the pencil line because this blade here doesn't give the smoothest cut. This is what the back side of my oval looks like, and originally I was going to make a painting, an oil painting, but I never finished it, so I might as well use this sheet of plywood for something else. And I have some other scraps that I'm making a similar shape to the main oval, but I'm going to leave some space on the inset part for wiring because I want to have maybe some LED spotlights, and I also bought some lampposts from Department 56, and lighting's a pretty big thing in Disney World, so I want to take advantage of current technologies and have a whole bunch of cool lighting that shine up onto the castle and then also illuminate the area around the castle. This polyurethane glue goes on like an amber color, and it doesn't want to hold right away. But if you push the pieces together and then pull them apart, the air will help activate the adhesive, and it actually begins to foam up a little bit as it cures. And at that point, it's time to push the pieces back together and leave them alone for 4, 5, 6, 8 hours. And then when you come back, it should all be nice, and all those pieces should have glued together and become one thing. That was the idea. But when I came back the next morning, the one section had actually slid over about 1.5 inches. The weights hadn't held it in place like I hoped, and I probably should have used a few little finish nails to hold the two things together, but I never even thought that they would slide that much. So I had to cut in a little filler strip to make up for the space left open where it slid. And then I just added another day to the project, which is no big deal. It turned out pretty good. I just used more scraps and held them together with the glue. These are the pieces that are going to be facing down against the train table, so they don't have to look perfect. And once I run it through my scroll saw, I think it should all blend together pretty nicely, and you won't even know. This is a much finer saw blade, but I still don't want to cut right on the pencil line. I want to cut close to it, but to get that nice final shape, I'm going to cut close to the pencil line and then do my finish sanding. I will use my orbital sander to just get right on that pencil line, and it should give me just about the nicest curve you can imagine. At least I hope so. So far it's going really well, and if I don't go past that pencil line, everything should be fine. And then just a little more sanding to the back to get rid of the foamy polyurethane glue, and everything should be nice and smooth. And now comes the real test, to see how well the inner circle of plywood fits within the oval of the cork roadbed. And as long as my gaps are nice and smooth and even, then I will be a very, very happy camper. And what do you know? Success! The cork roadbed is just a little bit lower than the inset of the plywood. When the track is laid on top of the roadbed, I don't think there will be any interference at all between the trains running and the plywood. This is the third level, and I lay that on top of the plywood oval that I just made. And this is going to mark out where some cuts will be, because I want that third level to fit right into the notches on this oval. And this also went very well.